CSSC is proud to be able to bring to Control Schools our deaf awareness and sign language learning for staff. These two videos are the culmination of 3 sign language programmes which have been delivered in 33 controlled primary schools, allowing the pupils of these schools to enjoy over 150 hours of sign language learning. It is our hope that in accessing these videos, we will encourage more controlled schools to engage with sign language learning.
Hello everyone, welcome to our CSSC Sign Language Workshop. I'm going to start by teaching you some sign language. Sign language is very important, and it's very important that you know the basics, and if you do, then you can talk to anyone in the deaf community or any deaf child. If you know the alphabet, then you can introduce yourself and tell them your name. So I'm going to teach you the alphabet first. Everyone ready? So the 5 vowels are on your 5 fingertips. A, E, I, O, and U. Those are your 5 vowels. So try and remember 5 vowels: A, E, I, O, and U. And this is the letter C. If you're right-handed, then imagine, I'm right-handed myself, so you're going to do the same as me. So imagine your left hand is your page and your right hand is your pen. If you're pointing from right to left, if you're right-handed, you're pointing from your pen to paper. And for the letter C, you're going to use your dominant hand, which is your right hand, to make the C. If you're left-handed, you're going to do it the opposite way round. Okay, everyone ready? And we'll go all the way through from A to Z. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, that's your K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, 2 little fingers hooked together, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Okay, let's do it one more time, and this time we'll do it a little bit quicker. Okay, everyone ready? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Good. It's important that you practice the alphabet. And honestly, if you do practice the alphabet every day for a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, you will remember the alphabet for life. If you practice every day. And sometimes you can even practice when you're sleeping. Imagine it in your sleep as well. So now we're going to have a little bit of a conversation in sign language and learn how to introduce ourselves. So first of all, I'm going to explain a little bit about deaf culture and hearing culture and how they're completely different. For example, our behaviour is very different. We use facial expressions, we use a lot of referencing and pointing. So if you're talking about yourself, you're going to be pointing to me, and you pointing to the other person. He, she, they. Okay, so let's do that again. So me, you, he, she, and they. So pointing is very much part of our language. I know in hearing culture, if you see someone pointing at you, it feels a little bit rude. It's not nice to have a finger pointing at you, but in deaf culture, it's completely appropriate and it's part of our language. You have to point and reference who you're talking about. So if you're pointing to an object like a chair, or if you're pointing to an aeroplane, you need to know where the object is that you're pointing to. So I'm going to teach you a little bit of conversation. So are you ready to learn how to say what is your name? So this is a sign for name. So it's 2 fingers, hand shape from the head. Name. And what? 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 Okay, so the question is, are we ready? Copy along with me. Your name is what? Let's do that again. You name what? His name is what? Her name what? Their names what? So you can see in sign language, the question always comes at the end of the sentence. The person you're talking about comes first and the question comes at the end. Our grammatical structure in sign language is very different from spoken English. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the question and then the response. I'll show you the response. You name what? My name is Anthony. Let's do that again. You name what? My name is Anthony. Good, so far what we've learned is the alphabet in sign language and how to introduce ourselves. So I'm going to teach you one more topic which is also very important. And this is a greeting, how are you? Are we ready to copy along? Are you well? Are you well? In English, you would probably say, how are you? Deaf people would sign this sign, which means how are you, but it's more natural to be, are you well? Are you well? With facial expressions and body language thrown in there too. So it's a sign which means, how are you? And the response will be, I'm great, thank you. I'm great, thank you. Or you might want to say, I'm tired. I'm tired. Or you might want to say, I'm stressed. I'm stressed. Okay, so are you ready to copy me? I'm going to ask you the question and then you can respond with how you're feeling. Are you well? I'm great, thanks. Okay, so watch this with some facial expressions and without facial expressions. Watch the difference. Are you well? I'm great, thank you. Are you well? I'm great, thank you. So can you see the difference between the first and second one? People think that sign language is only the hands, but it's not. It's the whole upper part of the body, facial expressions, body language, movement and gestures, as well as your hand shapes. And your speed and your movement and your location is also important. So there's lots of different elements to the language, and that's what makes it such a beautiful language, and it makes it an equivalent language to any other spoken language. It's very complex. So now I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Hello. Are you well? Your name is what? Thank you. And just one more thing I want to teach you. At the very end of the conversation, you can sign lovely to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Hope everyone's enjoying learning sign language. We've learned how to sign, how are you and what is your name, and those are the very basics of sign language, which will help a deaf person feel very included in a conversation. If there's a friendly face there signing that, then brilliant. And if you perhaps then have a little bit of a conversation, basic conversation, that will mean a lot. Okay, so now we're going to focus on some deaf awareness tips. It's important that you do know basic sign language, but it's also important that you have a little bit of knowledge of deaf culture, how they live their everyday lives, and what we do, and what our behaviour is like, and perhaps how it differs from yours, and what our values are as well. Okay, so first of all, we're going to do a lip reading activity. I'm going to pronounce a word on my lips, and I want you to try and guess what you think the word is. This time, I'm not going to use any voice or any whispering, so let's see if you can manage to figure out what I'm saying. So what do you think the word was? The word was plain. A lot of words look very similar on the lips, and if you think about it, so the word for plain might look very much like please. Very similar on the lips. Okay, I'll give you another word and see if you can work out what this one is. Okay, so what do you think that word was that I was pronouncing? The answer was bat. Now it might have been pat, could have been pat, very similar. So lip reading can be very, very tiresome and difficult for deaf people. Imagine lip reading all day for an entire day. It can be exhausting. Even for 1 or 2 hours, it can be actually really, really exhausting. Some deaf people can lip read for long periods of time. Some people can only do it for short periods of time. Some people get very confused about the different level of deafness. From my experience working in different environments, in the educational environment, in court settings, in workplaces, a lot of people ask me these questions about meeting a deaf person and perhaps being able to have a normal conversation with them, thinking that they understand me and they can speak very clearly. Later on, they perhaps meet a different deaf person and realise that deaf person doesn't have the same clarity of speech. They can't have a conversation the same way. I have to repeat myself. They think perhaps they don't have a good education, or they can't be bothered lip reading. They haven't practiced lip reading. Sometimes there can be reasons, but the number one reason is because they have a different level of hearing from another deaf person. So imagine a baby is born profoundly deaf, can't hear any words, having to grow up guessing what the word sounds like. That's why their speech isn't going to be clear. Someone with moderate deafness perhaps can hear some sounds and learn to speak more clearly and perhaps have a normal conversation. But often in a group, they get a little bit lost where there's lots of people talking at the same time. So it's important that you adapt to the level of deafness that the person has. And some people think that's very sad, that a deaf person can't hear music, for example, and all the different instruments. But if you've never heard it before, then it's hard also. If you have had hearing and you've grown up hearing and then you've been deafened, that's more difficult because you have that experience of what sound is like. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of synopsis of deaf history and why sign language isn't always out there in every mainstream society. In 1880, a lot of deaf professionals felt that sign language should be banned. They believed that oralism was the best way to educate a deaf child. They believed that sign language could damage a child's ability to be literate, to speak properly and to read English. And so a lot of the professionals agreed all over the world to ban that. Before that, 1880, it was known as the Golden Age, where deaf people had access, they could sign, they had lots of opportunities in career. But from 1880 onwards, a lot of deaf people suffered. Their educational opportunities fell behind. And from then until about 1970, a lot of deaf people found themselves in manual jobs. They couldn't progress up the career ladder. So the BDA did some research and proved that sign language actually did help a child to speak better because it gave them a foundational language. Often teachers think that if you teach a child sign language, then how will they ever learn to speak? But that is such an interesting part of the child's development. And it's because you're using a different part of your brain. To use sign language, you're using a visual part of your brain. Hearing is relying on obviously auditory sounds, so it's a different way of learning. So if they're learning through sign language and then they learn to read, it will help them to understand the context. So it gives them the foundation of a language, which is so important. So in 1970, they realized that this was so important. And in 2003, after long years of campaigning, the government finally recognised sign language as a proper language in the UK. In Northern Ireland, we were a year behind that. But that was perfect because that meant that deaf people had access to education. Subtitles were then put on TV. Before that, there were no access to subtitles. There were no professional interpreters working. And from then on until now, we have still been campaigning for the BSL Act. In Scotland and Wales, the Act has been passed, but in Northern Ireland, because of our difficulties with Stormont, we haven't managed to get that passed yet. But hopefully the BSL Act will be very important to protect our language in the incoming years. And we do have a right to have access in our own language. So that's why sign language perhaps isn't as out there as it should be in every community, but sign language gives a lot of people the options, and it's up to the deaf person whether they choose to speak or sign. So just to summarise, I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit about our deaf culture and about sign language. So we can't fix our problem, but society can change their attitude. And if society changes to adapt to us and give us more accessibility, then that's the perfect answer. Thank you so much for watching and your interest to learn.